Welcome to another fabulous Wednesday on Crypt. Oh my God, are we actually getting clarity on how this industry can build? Like every day this week has been exciting for people that have been here for a long time, for people that lived through the past administration and just kept taking one on the chin for finally we are getting guidance into what the hell we can do here in the cryptosphere. Boom! Now I gotta come out with your favorite topic because I know you guys love regulation, and this is a speech coming from Chairman Paul S. Atkins of the SEC on the Commission's approach to digital assets inside Project Crypto. Guys, this is a game changer. This speech right here is one of the more exciting things I've seen in years. And why is that? Because it is clearly referencing Project Crypto from the SEC and everything going on with the Clarity Act, but that is what we're getting is clarity. And he speaks so well to the previous administration's approach and how we can expect things to look moving forward. He opens up talking about a decade of uncertainty, and that was the past 10 years. Are you tired of hearing this question? Are crypto assets securities? I sympathize. It's a confounding question because crypto asset is not a term defined by the federal securities laws. It's a technical description. It tells you something about how records are kept and value is transferred, but it says little about the legal rights attached to a particular instrument or the economic reality of a particular transaction, which are the key to determining whether something is a security. He goes on to say that most crypto assets are not a security, that a security has a clear definition, and that if something is a tokenized stock or a bond, well, that does remain a security. But if it begins as an investment contract, that doesn't mean that as a network decentralizes, it retains that right. Now, he goes on to add some very black and white information. First, as contemplated in legislation currently in front of Congress, digital commodities and network tokens are, in my opinion, not securities. This is talking about decentralized networks. We can think of these as L1s, in which the asset is the gas that powers the network. Second, digital collectibles. He's talking about NFTs. I mean, ridiculous to consider NFTs to be a digital security. And let's recall that Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis's Stoner Cats, which was a cartoon television show where they launched NFTs, and if your character was in the show, you could have some sort of impact on what happened. This was a really fun premise to say, hey, can we distribute collectibles to our audience and make a way that we actually have a push and a pull relationship with the viewers of Stoner Cats? Well, guess what happened to Stoner Cats? They got sued to oblivion and the whole project shut down. This also happens after they're sold to users. So people wind up with their value completely eviscerated by this agency that's supposed to protect users from scams. Third, digital tools, in my opinion, are not securities. These crypto assets perform a practical function such as a membership, ticket, credential, title, instrument, identity badge. Again, this is kind of an NFT thing, but saying, hey, there's no reason if you're issuing concert tickets on chain that we need to come and deal with this. And fourth and finally, tokenized securities are and will continue to be securities. And that is pretty obvious, but what is nice is to have this definition means that tokenized security space can really start to develop. Obviously, people dealing with traditional assets, they didn't want to wade into these waters if it was all uncertain and opaque. So this is good. And in the speech, he goes on to say, hey, look, we're still here to protect from fraud. If you do sell a token and you disappear immediately afterwards, we're going to come for you for this full extent of the law. So this is what we want. A regulator that helps us keep the bad people at bay, that helps us stop the scammers, versus what we got, which was a regulator that told us everything of value was this undefined term, pushes us to meme coins, and we've seen the scammery that's come out of meme coins, of course, bringing us to the peak scam coin, which is the Trump coin itself. Now, he goes on to talk about Howey, promises, and endings, and for anyone who doesn't know, the Howey test is the de facto test for a security. Howey had a lot of property around the 1920s to 1930s, and he decided to put a ton of orange groves on top of this property. What he did was he sold rights to these orange groves. He said, other people can invest. We will take care of the trees. We will harvest the fruit. We will sell it for you, and we'll return you money on that investment. That is the core of a securities contract, basically saying, is a third party responsible for the business operations, for generating the revenue, and are they sharing that back? And this was made so that people can't scam you, right? That if they say, hey, I'm going to perform a duty if you give me money, that they do indeed perform this duty. Howey purchased over 60,000 acres of largely untamed land, and he put these trees on top of it. But today, that land has all been converted. It's condos, it's developments, it's all sorts of things. But that dirt doesn't retain security status simply because Howey had these orange trees on it years ago and was the foundation of a security. And that's how Gensler approached these crypto token assets. And his point is saying that, look, just because the initial investment could be a security, right? We're going to launch this network. It's early on. It's coming from a core development group, doesn't mean that the networks don't decentralize and that these assets lose that designation. And it does lay the groundworks of what users can expect. This is why we're seeing fee switches flip on from Uniswap, from Lido, just what I talked about yesterday. Now, I really like some of the things that he says here. And he goes, let me end where Commissioner Peirce began her new paradigm remarks in May of this year with a reminder of our history. She evoked the spirit of an American patriot who took a stand at great personal risk and, in fact, near death for the principle that free people should not be governed by arbitrary decrees. This is exactly what happened under Gensler. Our work, thankfully, does not demand that kind of sacrifice, but the principle remains the same. In a free society, the rules that govern economic life should be knowable, reasoned, and appropriately constrained. When we stretch the securities laws beyond their proper scope, when we treat every innovation as presumptively suspect, we stray from the core principle. When we recognize the limits of our authority, when we acknowledge that investment contracts can end and that networks can stand on their own merits, we honor it. And what this is really saying is that we are here to support new growth. If they look at every new development, which is really coming from Elizabeth Warren, who lost a lot of power to the web, to oligarchs, what they found was that they didn't believe that the internet was going to be what it is. And now you've got Musk, you've got Zuckerberg, you've got Bezos, and these men hold a lot of power versus the US government. That was the core of their fear. And to anyone who follows me, it is screamingly obvious that blockchain will upend the traditional finance system. It is simply a better tech stack. It is a modern tech stack, and it is one that is built for not only a computerized world, but for an online world, which the traditional finance rails are pre-computer. Let's keep that in mind. Now, some interesting information coming out too as we look at kind of the ever-shifting landscape of launching companies in the United States. Paul Grewal, the chief legal officer of Coinbase, he comes out and says, today, Coinbase is announcing our decision to leave Delaware and reincorporate in Texas. This decision was not made lightly, but we'll always do our best for our customers, our employees, and our shareholders. And he's basically responding to what happened to Elon under the Delaware regime, which was that Elon shareholders did vote on this $1 trillion pay package, and yet the courts in Delaware stepped in and said, no, we don't like this. Now, when you're trying to build a business, obviously we want to keep people from grifting, from becoming scammers, right? We don't want Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes and all that kind of stuff. But what's happening in Delaware was they created the most friendly rule set for corporations, so a lot of people came up there, and now they're ossifying and they're becoming prosecutorial. Paul goes on to say that, hey, look, free markets are good for competition, and it's nice to see Texas taking on these corporate developments in a way that is competitive with Delaware. So, I mean, is this purely crypto related? It kind of comes back to what the SEC was doing, which is to say, hey, we are building brand new businesses that operate on new paradigms, and we don't want to be pigeonholed into the old world's model, that we need a little bit of leeway to experiment, to create and develop this new order, this new world order. Now, on to other news. Avalanche has been coming out with some great news regarding traditional finance. Their token's taking a hit, which is a bit of a strange reality considering they just keep shipping and delivering on a lot of things. But we have this announcement. Digital Liquidity Gateway will plug into the FIS core system using AI to cut manual work and record deals on-chain for instant verification and programmable settlement. Built on AvaCloud, Intane's Avalanche L1 unlocks bank capital faster and brings more RWA flow and institutional usage to Avalanche. If you want to learn more, there is a deeper article attached, but basically what is happening here, and this is pretty fun, Avalanche has a unique feature that anyone can build their own L1, but it plugs into everything that's already built on top of Avalanche. So you can build your own network with your own validators, with your own gas asset, but it's going to be interoperable with everything else on the Avalanche network. And we've seen this respond very nicely to traditional finance players that have very specific rules that they need to follow, like the SEC's rules. So they build a new network, they put those parameters in place, and we're seeing things like Denari, which is a broker dealer, somebody that locks in deals between securities purchasers and sellers themselves. They broker the deal around securities. So what Denari does is it takes real stocks, it custodies them, and it issues and it issues a token to any network that allows people on chain to trade a stock. And unlike some of these mirrored assets, these stocks retain their actual ownership. So it's a way to sort of move the stock market onto the 24/7 markets of cryptocurrency, of blockchain rails. And this is really fun. And Denari basically created their own L1 as a ledger that keeps track of, where are these stocks issued? Are they on Solana? Are they on Avalanche? Are they on Ethereum? Their L1 keeps that all centered, and they are taking the stock market and spreading it throughout the blockchain ecosystem. So really cool. And this is all good to see. Now, again, coming back to the regulators, now that we're finally free of sharing the revenue from decentralized protocols, we're getting back to some fun conversations. So one of the big complaints, I talked about Uniswap turning on the fee switch yesterday, is that Uniswap's fee switch model is that they use their revenue to buy and burn the Uniswap token. People would really prefer to have that revenue just flow back, right? I would like to say, hey, if you make $100 on these fees and I earn 1%, I'd rather just have 1% of those dollars show up in my account than you taking 1% of those dollars and buying the token back and burning. Now, they're technically economically similar, right? One is a dividend play, but there is the VE model coming out of Curve Finance, which stands for vested equity. And that means you have to take your tokens like Curve, you have to lock them up into extended contracts like 1 month, 3 month. There is some caveat to pulling your liquidity out, and the protocol rewards you appropriately for the amount of risk you're taking on. It also pays you those fees directly. So this conversation is starting to heat up. And of course, you got Michael Egorov here, the founder of Curve, and he says, really glad that Uni chose an inferior mechanism of revenue distribution. Things are proceeded as planned for those curious. And he sends us to a great article for inquisitive minds that says a comparative analysis of the vested equity model and buy and burn model for DeFi token economics, CurveFi as an example. So this is, again, the kind of conversations that we want to see happening, right? This is so much deeper than meme coins, than the trenches. This is figuring out how to build autonomous systems and truly reward the network participants. We want people to buy crypto assets and to have their money grow. This is about creating an open financial system that can help people start to save. And when it went into the full speculation, the nihilism of meme coins, as Travis Kling described, it just morphed into this utterly depressing, down into the right chart, right, where private investors were just dumping on retail and everything sucked. And it's no wonder why the crypto economy has looked like such shit, has performed like such shit. We just keep making infinite tokens, especially in the meme coin world, and none of them have value. And that's largely because the ones that tried to have value back in the earlier years were compressed and destroyed by the regulatory environment under Gary Gensler. So this is exciting. We're getting back to the conversations that we should be having, which is how can we best set up token holders to grow their wealth in a permissionless ecosystem that is globally agnostic, that doesn't care about who you are, the color of your skin, or anything like that. This is truly exciting, and I'm happy to say that even though the crypto markets kind of blow right now, we do feel like we're bottoming out on the actual fundamentals of the space, on what you can build, on what the people creating these technologies are permitted to do, and really how they can best reward the token holders in their economies. And this is exciting, and it makes me bullish. So while this might not play out in the micro, macro wise, and the year over year, this is super, super important, and it gets me amped. We are regaining our health, we are supporting our wealth, and we're moving back to the core ethos of creating communally operated, distributed, decentralized, permissionless networks. With that being said, the price is all over the place, so don't over lever. Stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.